Hello and welcome to Spice Up Your Life. That is what we're talking about today. We are live on YouTube and on LinkedIn, so get ready to communicate with me in the comments. I've got lots of questions for you today because I think we are all going through this time where we are feeling this lack of energy, and I've noticed it myself. I've noticed it as I'm talking to people. I keep on, getting this sense that there's just a bit of lack of joy. And the other day, I said to someone, asked me how I was, and I literally said, meh. Like, that's not me. I am used to sort of being someone who has lots of energy and is, optimistic, positive, all of that kind of stuff. And it was so interesting how I was feeling that way myself. So I know that we are all in this kind of phase of what Adam Grant called languishing. And just the other day in my Facebook memories, this picture popped up. This is me 4 years ago in Arizona, and you can see me jumping, literally jumping for joy. I was filled with just life and zest and all of this energy. I mean, that was an amazing trip for one thing, but I often just had this, I was looking for ways to just feel and be energized, and it was just a part of who I am. And now looking back over the past year to year and a half almost, now that we've been through this pandemic, I was like, when is the last time I felt that kind of zest and joy? And it's been a while. And, there's been moments. I certainly, find ways to be grateful and have fun occasionally, not a lot. But, that kind of zest is lacking. And when I read Adam Grant's article, I'm not sure if you let me know if you read Adam Grant's article in the New York Times, but I think that probably, I think Karen, who is on my team, is here, and she can pop the link into the comments. Karen, if you're here, maybe you can do that. Um, and well, what he kind of talked about what languishing was as this absence of well-being. It's not depression. We know what depression is. We know what stress is and anxiety and those kinds of things. But languishing is like this absence of that joy. It's this lack of energy or zest. So if you are here, I would love to have you just in the comments share an emoji that would represent your level of energy these days. What emoji would you use to represent your current level of energy? Like, if there's an emoji that's kind of meh, that's my emoji right now. I don't know what emoji that is. If you know that emoji, share that as well. So I have been noticing that I've been feeling just, and I love my work, but I've been feeling a little less motivated than usual, not as energetic and excited about things. I don't have my usual like pep to get things done. And I'm certified in resilience. I'm practicing the 7 skills that you're needed to kind of proactively build those resilience muscles that helps you solve challenges. And that's really great. But the other part of resilience is that we need energy in order to power those 7 muscles. And so after this long of being in this state of stress, our energy is starting to be tapped out. So in resilience training, we look at some of the energies that we want to build, and I'm seeing some of these emojis. Yeah, okay. Thank you. I think that's the meh emoji that I was looking for. I could totally relate to some of these emojis that you're sharing. Those are the same for me. So, we look at some energies that we can start to build and kind of replenish, because we are in the state of we're tapped out, right? We are just lacking that energy. And in one study, HBR did a study in late 2020, and they found that 85% of people said that their well being had declined. Only 21% rated their well being as good, and 2% as excellent. So I'm curious, where do you fall there? Has your well being declined over the past year? Where would you rate your well being? Is it very bad, bad, meh, good, excellent? I'm kind of in a meh state. And so, I'm doing this live to share with you some tips. I've been taking courses in neuroscience and positive psychology and resilience and all of these things. And so I'm going to share with you some tips and some things that the science tells us. But really, I'm also doing this for me as a reminder of what I can do to bring that energy back and to move from that languishing, the absence of well being, into flourishing. So, flourishing would be I feel good and I'm productive. It's like, it's this positive state of mental health, mental well-being, being able to get things done in an optimistic, positive way. And that's where I know that I want to be. And I think that, like all of us want to thrive rather than just survive, which feels like that's kind of what we're doing these days, a little bit of surviving. So today I'm just talking about individuals and what we can do, but I want to be clear here because organizations have a lot to do. And from a strategic activation standpoint, there are some behaviors that leaders can start to practice, some habits that they can get into. Deloitte did a study on the future of work, and one of their key findings is that we need to design work for well-being. And I will do a live about that in the future, about like what are the things leaders and organizations can do to start to really redesign our organizations for more well-being for us. But for today, I'm focusing on what anyone can do. And there are 4 types of energy that are often mentioned in the research. And I've added a 5th because I think after this pandemic that we're going through, depending on where you are or have been through or kind of getting towards the end of it, maybe, hopefully, I've added a 5th because isolation has been so prevalent. And these 5 energies are really interconnected. But so I'm going to share the 5 different kinds of energy. I'm going to kind of ask you where you would rate yourself in with them on a scale of, for fun, our scale today is, are you a 1 over here with the puppy falling asleep? I am lacking that energy. Or are you a 10 with the puppy running all over the place? So for each energy, I'll ask you to give yourself a rating, 1 to 10. Where are you? Are you more on the left with this little guy over here? Or are you more on the right with this little guy over here, which, looks like a lot of fun. But so on a scale of 1 to 10, as we go through, let's start with, so the acronym we're using is SPICE. This is all about spice up your life. SPICE stands for spiritual, physical, intellectual, connected, and emotional energy. And the connected one is the one that I've added because I feel like we are a little more isolated. And so let's start with the spiritual energy. So this is connecting with a sense of meaning and purpose. So how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? Where would you rate your spiritual energy? How much of a feeling of a sense of meaning and purpose do you feel in your life right now? 1 to 10. I would love to see what's happening for you. And I'm just looking at some of these comments. I'm seeing, lack of change. Seeing tapped out. Yes, it feels like I'm tapped out. I can understand that. Tapped out from all of the above: work, pandemic, home life. Yes, we are feeling that Feeling tired, and yet my days haven't even been busy enough to warrant it, right? If you can relate to that, give a thumbs up or hit the like button. Yeah, we're kind of going through the motions. There is this kind of sense, this feeling. So, okay, spiritual energy hacks. I'm going to share some ways to amp up your spiritual energy. First of all, thinking of meaning. And I have here, it's their first time. This is my little hack for this spiritual energy, because there have been times when I have, in the course of my work, felt a little lack of meaning. We do a ton of culture and leadership development, and I'm often in a room doing leading a discussion, facilitating a discussion about a certain topic. And usually I've done these facilitated discussions many times with many different groups. And so a while back, I was feeling a little lack of meaning in the work I was doing. And because I do the same thing quite often, I had to realize that just because it's not my first time, it's their first time. So my way of bringing meaning back into my work when I was feeling a little bit rote was that it's this group in this room or this Zoom room's first time having this discussion with me. And the way I show up is going to bring them, impact them in a different way. And so that brought me a lot more meaning and purpose, and helped to energize that kind of spiritual energy for me, that sense of meaning, connectedness with purpose. Second tip is to meditate. Now, I was a resistant meditator for a long time, but meditation has become such an integral part of my life, and it has been life-changing. And the app that I use, I actually used to use Headspace. I now use an app called Balance. And my bonus app here, my bonus kind of hack or tip for you, if you're a resistant meditator like me, is to actually make this more automatic than not meditating. And I use Shortcuts, which is an app on the iPhone, which means it's kind of an if this then that sort of app. It's like a recipe, if you've ever used like a Zapier or a kind of if this then that, IFTTT. So what I have it set up is every time my alarm goes off, when I hit alarm off, the meditation automatically starts. So it is harder for me to go in and like stop the meditation than actually to just lay in bed and meditate as I get up. So that's my way of hacking that. And that has become just part of what I do. I meditate every day. It has had a profound impact. And then my third tip, this is my favorite, is an awe walk. So awe walk is, I learned about this from the Greater Good Science Center. It is, and I walk my dog 3 times a day, but I'm often listening to a podcast or to the news or to an ebook when I'm walking. And what I have started to do is make it a point to walk with no podcast, with no agenda for something that I have to think about or reflect on. And instead, I just kind of get out into nature. I breathe. I just focus on my breath. You would know this if you meditate, just focusing on my breath. I just notice my body as I'm walking, and then I start. And so I'm focusing inwards at first, and then focusing outwards and noticing the color of the leaves, the color of the grass as it's starting to come through, the breeze in the tree branches, the sound of it, the feeling of it on my skin, and just noticing. And it's amazing the feeling of what they call awe that you get. It's this feeling of being connected to so much more than just yourself. And so I do that often in nature, but I have experienced the same thing. I was speaking to a group in England recently, and I stayed at Citizen M, which is near the Tower Bridge, if you've been to London. And I experienced this awe feeling there in the middle of the city, out on the rooftop patio, watching, like, again, focus on my breath, how I felt, and then looking around and seeing the headlights on the streets, the flow of the people moving, the river going through London, and that same feeling of awe came up. So you don't have to be in nature, but those are 3 tips for hacking into that spiritual energy and amping that up. So I'd love to hear if you are here live, either on YouTube or on LinkedIn, share with me what are some tips that you have. What has worked for you to increase a feeling of meaning and purpose, that sense of connection with your purpose, because that is an important kind of energy. Now, the second kind of energy is the physical energy. This is what we often think of. It is like really the ability to, the health of our body, the ability to use our physical body to move tangible things. And so I would love to hear from you on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being that dog falling asleep, 2 being, or 10 being the dog running around. Where would you put yourself as far as your level of physical energy these days? And I will give you some tips, and I'd love to hear what works for you. So really kind of 3 core things: eat, move, and rest. Eat. So when you're feeling that down, think about what you're putting in your body. And by the way, physical energy is my focus right now. This is the area of energy that I feel like I am often lacking the most, and the area that I sort of neglect the most. So thinking about what you're putting in your body, what's the nutritional value? So for me, those potato chips are not the best thing for me to have at a 2:30 or 3 o'clock snack. Instead, having some plain yogurt with some fruit or something is a much better kind of energy giving fuel for me. So what are you eating? How often are you eating? Taking snacks. Secondly, move. Movement can be whatever it is for you. So, for me, it's a lot of times it's walking, it's yoga, and it's dancing. So I put in here, what's my favorite app? This is dance videos or YouTube videos on yoga. Over the pandemic, there were tons of dance instructors that were releasing dance videos, how-tos on the web. If you're on Instagram, you can follow Twitch and Allison Holker and their, I can't remember what they call it, the family groove or something. They do live dances. You don't need any ability, but it is just fun getting your body moving. So whatever movement means to you, let me know in the chat. What's your favorite kind of movement to kind of bring up that energy? And then thirdly, rest. This is one thing I am good at. I protect my sleep. I try to get 8 hours a day, and I set up my room for sleep. I turn off my technology at least an hour to 2 hours before. I don't look at screens. I really protect sleep because this is critical for me. That rest piece, this can be a game changer at work too, for our cognitive or intellectual energy, which is the next piece. So I would love to hear what else. I see Karen cooking at home. Yeah, more healthy food if you're cooking it at home. I'm seeing between a 5 and a 7 on this one because it's gardening season. Yeah, getting out and gardening, that's a movement piece, right? Like just getting out into the garden and doing that kind of work. That is totally movement. Okay. Let's look at intellectual energy. So this is your ability or willingness to engage in cognitive work and learn new ways of thinking and acting. And so tips here related to that break, right? We need to take a brain break. In the afternoon, when you're starting to feel that lack of energy, it's an indicator that you need a break. And there is something called ultradian rhythm. This is going to cover up a bunch of stuff, I think, but there is something called ultradian rhythm that I will put over my face. And this is this level of energy that goes up and down throughout the day. And this was first found to be at night. We sleep in cycles that go up and down, deeper and less deep sleep. But this also happens during the day, where we start off with, and we have an arousal rate to a high performance, high energy. And then we go through this stress state and we need to heal. And this is happening about every 90 minutes. So if you can schedule a break every 90 minutes. And in an ideal world, that break might include a healthy snack and a walk around. That will really tie in that physical and intellectual energy break that you really need. Okay, then do something simple. Sometimes when we're feeling really stuck cognitively or intellectually, we're overwhelmed. We have too much and too complex tasks to handle. So instead, do something simple. Just knock something off your to-do list, something that doesn't take a lot of mental energy. For me, sometimes that is filing or like putting through some expenses or just doing something that doesn't take a lot of thinking. And that gives you a sense of accomplishment. It puts you into some forward momentum. And then thirdly, vary your reading and your learning. So the app I love for this is Elevate. I think it's made by the same people who do the Balance app. And it gives me a bunch of different mind sort of activities and exercises. So anything from math to reasoning to grammar skills to all kinds of language things. And it's a great way to just kind of test your brain out in different ways. And it is gamified and fun and quick little bites all the time. If you always do the crossword puzzle, do the Sudoku puzzle as well, right? Just do some varied ways of getting your brain kind of being used. So those are some intellectual kind of pieces. And I would love to hear if you have any. So if you are in the comments on YouTube or on LinkedIn, let me know whether you are here live or later watching the replay. I see Sigrid, welcome. Hi, Sigrid. Elevate app is excellent. Yeah, I love that app. Okay, the next piece is connection energy. So I feel like this one is so important right now because we have been so isolated, and this is all about how strongly you're able to relate to others and have close relationships. And so a few tips for building your connection energy. First of all, random acts of kindness. You may have heard of this. You may have been the recipient of a random act of kindness. I see Satyendra. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sometime back, I started playing chess in my free time to get my focus back. Turned out to be a bad idea. Maybe I was doing it wrong. There's no wrong. Just do what feels good. And interestingly, though, like if it is challenging or like if it's difficult, because I'd love to hear why that was a bad idea. But that might be a chance to really, really build a skill. And so an example for me, going back to that intellectual energy, I started doing crosswords last year. We get a daily newspaper with a crossword in it, and I honestly sucked at crosswords. Every other clue, I was Googling like crossword helper, solve this for me. And it would take me an hour or 2 hours to do the daily crossword. And now I'm finishing them in 15 minutes without looking anything up a lot of times. So, it was a struggle at first. It was kind of frustrating. I tend to really dig in though when something is challenging. And I found like I love doing the crossword now, and I am now adding the Sudoku. I took my own advice there. So yeah, I would love to hear why that was a bad idea. But just find what is the thing that is fun for you, that energizes your brain, but do vary it, because sometimes the more difficult things are a really good indicator of that's where to play. Oh, increased anxiety level. Maybe you were playing against some masters of chess. Chess was such a huge hit, especially with that show on Netflix, which I can't remember the name of. Yeah, I can imagine that it might be anxiety producing. So maybe there's, how can you compete just with yourself instead of others? Sometimes that is more helpful as well. Okay, so connection energy, random acts of kindness. Oh, first of all, level 1 to 10. Are you low in connection energy or high in connection energy? Where would you put your connection energy right now? How strong is your feeling of relatedness to others and feeling of having strong relationships? So random acts of kindness, there's been tons of studies on kindness and happiness. They found that those who volunteer have better life expectancy and well-being. They're less lonely. They have better immune systems, lower levels of depression. So that's an example. And there's been tons of studies on this. There was one study done in UBC where people were given $20 and to either give away or spend on themselves. And they measured their happiness level before and after and found that the ones who gave the money away, whether that was to charity or buying someone else something, had higher happiness levels than those who spent their money on themselves. Their happiness levels actually decreased. So this has been replicated time and time again. And the interesting thing about kindness is that researchers have found it causes a positive loop. So when I'm kind and I do something for someone else and I feel better, then I do more kind things and I feel even better. So it's like this positivity loop. So random acts of kindness, do something kind for someone without expecting anything in return. Over the course of the pandemic, I found if it was rare that I went to a drive-through. We have Tim Hortons in Canada. And on the rare occasion that I went through the Tim Hortons drive-through, I would buy whoever was behind me whatever they ordered as well. And it would be this fun moment of glee, me driving away from the drive-through going, I can't, this is so exciting. I just like made their day. That's me imagining that I made their day, but it made me so happy to do that really simple, small thing. So figure out what could be a random act of kindness. Secondly, hugs. We haven't had enough of them through this pandemic. And it's a weird thing. What I realized is that when I live with people, so my dad moved in at the beginning of the pandemic and is living here with me now. It used to be when we would get together, I would always hug him when I first saw him and hug him when we were leaving. Now that we live together, the hugging just isn't happening. And so I remember months and months ago having not hugged anyone for many months because of social distancing. I actually went into my dad's room and I said, can I just have a hug? And just hugging someone, hold someone in a genuine hug for 15 to 20 seconds. And the boost of oxytocin that creates does help you to regain energy, build happiness. So hug if you can. If you're in a place where you can hug someone, take advantage of that. Don't be complacent about hugs. Hug. And then the third connection tip is about a square squad. You may have heard about this from Brené Brown. This is a concept from her. Basically, and I find this is a fascinating thing about social media. We feel like we have to connect with so many people, and it's this false sense of connection. And the square squad is taking a 1 inch by 1 inch square piece of paper, so tiny little piece of paper, and writing on it the names of those people that are really important to you, that you really trust, that really know you and love you for who you are, not in spite of who you are, and putting their names just on that 1 inch by 1 inch square piece of paper. It's not a lot of names, but those are the people that are important, and focus on them. For a connection hack. Don't focus on your 500 Facebook friends or your 10,000 LinkedIn followers. Focus on the people on your square squad. So those are my connection energy hacks. I would love to hear from you. What has helped you feel more connected to people over the course of the last while? I'm seeing Karen saying hugs have been so important. I'm seeing Sigrid spelling bee at the New York Times and the mini crossword on New York Times. Low time commitment. Yeah, something small that just engages your brain. It doesn't have to be a hard task. Something simple that just gets your brain power kind of moving. Come up with a square squad. Who would you write down? Yes, think about your square squad. Do that. I challenge you to just draw out or like cut out a little 1 inch by 1 inch square. And again, this is Brené Brown's tip, not mine, but I love it. And write down the names of those people that are important. Finally, final in spice is emotional energy. So this is, are you able to tap into your emotions? Are you able to deal with the difficult emotions that often accompany kind of the difficulty that we've been in through the disruption, the change, the challenges, the grief that we've all experienced over the last year? So, some tips for this, and tell me 1 to 10, how's your emotional energy? How effectively are you able to tap into those emotions and use them productively? First of all, name that feeling. Name it to tame it, they say. When you actually put a label on an emotion, it does help your amygdala settle down, and it helps you to like deal with that emotion more effectively. So do name it to tame it. And there's tons of emotion charts, emotion kind of maps of emotions that you can find on the internet. Here's just a simple one that we often use in our workshops. Look on that chart there and type in one emotion that you felt over the past 48 hours. What's one emotion that maybe you have been felt? So I'll tell you, I've been moody. I've been disappointed. I have been uncomfortable. I have felt very mellow a few times. So these are some of the things that are coming up for me over the last 48 hours. What kinds of emotions have you experienced over the last 48 hours? Let me know in the comments. Okay, and then secondly, permission to feel. Give yourself permission to feel. We cannot get past emotions without feeling them. I learned this the hard way when I was going through grief at some point, which is a whole other video. But give yourself permission to feel. If you dull the negative emotions, quote unquote, I'm going to say, they're not negative. We think of them as negative, but you also dull the positive emotions. And there's a great TED talk by Susan David about emotional agility. And I love what she says. She says, if you don't want to feel those kind of difficult emotions, then you have the aspirations of a dead person. Because to live is to feel. It's part of the human experience. So that ability to feel is part of who we are. Allow yourself to feel. It is the best way to actually move through your emotions. Is through it. You can't surpass them or kind of get by them. And I'm seeing overwhelmed. Oh my goodness, you are not alone in feeling overwhelmed. That is one of the things I am hearing more and more often. And again, I'll go back to make sure if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe and the bell, because I will be doing more lives. If you're on LinkedIn, make sure we're connected, because I will do more lives. And one of them will be about organization's role in helping us with well-being, because I think that unfortunately, senior leaders, this is for you. You have a big role to play in the overwhelm that people are feeling. I'm hearing a real lack of prioritization and just adding priorities instead of remembering the need to reduce priorities. Prioritization should be an act in reduction, taking away the things that aren't priorities. And I see that lacking in a lot of organizations. So overwhelmed, totally get it. Remorseful, dissatisfied, satisfied, content, fired up, whole range there, distressed, moody, anxious. Yeah, I don't think all of you are not alone in feeling these. And that leads me to my third tip around emotional energy hacks, and that is to share your emotions. And this is especially important if you lead teams. There have been studies done where they found that those leaders who share what they're feeling and what they're struggling with actually build more trust, and their teams experience less burnout. So as a leader and as a human, choose your square squad people if you want. Share how you're feeling, share what you're going through. And that does create stronger trust. And so I would love to hear from you. What else helps you with emotional energy? Any other tips that you would share? We have talked about let me start here. Spicing up your life, SPICE, spiritual, physical, intellectual, connected, and emotional energy hacks. I have given you a bunch of ideas, but I want you to share yours in the comments. Make sure you're doing that. Would love to hear from you, because ultimately, in the words of the famous philosophers, the Spice Girls, every boy and every girl, spice up your life. People of the world, spice up your life, right? We all have the ability to make a little bit of a difference in our energy. We all can control some of the things that we're going through. So I would love to ask you, before you go, commit to one thing. I've shared 15 different tips here. What is one thing you're going to try? Which energy do you want to build more? And what's one thing that you're going to try? I see Jessica talking about walks in nature. Yeah, those walks are so powerful. Love to hear that you're doing that too. That is one of the best, especially through this pandemic. And when you're walking, that awe piece that I talked about near the beginning of the video can be really helpful. Just really getting present with yourself and with what's around you and noticing all of that. You do get this intense feeling of being connected to more than just yourself. That those nature walks. So comment, let me know one new thing, depending on which energy you are trying to build. What's one thing you're going to try to spice up your life? And please make sure that we're connected, subscribe, and hit that bell on LinkedIn, on YouTube, so that you can get the next video. I'm actually going to be live next week with Jody Thompson, who is the creator of Results Only Work Environment. We are going to be talking about why going row is like such a fundamental shift and how helpful it would be if we shift to that way of thinking in our organizations, especially if we're in a hybrid or flexible work environment. So make sure you are here for that. We are going to be live. I think it's at noon next Friday. I will be posting about that, talking all about row and what that really looks like and how it is so fundamental and amazing to operate as a row. Okay, thanks everyone. Make work awesome for yourself and others, and start with at least one new habit to spice up your life.